Back in 2018, I was 17 years old and had came back from abroad to visit my friends in my home city for the winter. I remember it was the cold month of December, and I was walking back to my apartment after a medical appointment with my mother when I happened to pass by this very old abandoned drama theater that was built in the 1800s, where my grandfather had temporarily worked in his youth, which had been closed ever since the 90s. I recall I hadn't been on that street for a long time since my childhood, because I would always avoid the old drama theater building as it gave me very strange vibes, so I would always take the other way home back to the city center. However, that particular day I happened to take that route for some unknown reason, and I took that road with my mother while we discussed my upcoming exams, until she stopped me at the intersection for some odd reason and told me I was going the wrong way. At that moment, I saw a young blonde girl sitting in a very familiar blue Opel car, playing on her PSP 3000 in the car, and she glanced up to look at me. Our eyes met, and I felt an odd sense of familiarity and recollection. I froze for a bit in shock until I heard my mother's voice and decided to quickly turn back. I went home as if nothing happened, and then realized that when I was a kid back in 2009, it was snowing and I had seen an older teenager with highlights, makeup, and a purple winter jacket looking at me strangely when I was in the car with my dad in the back seat, waiting for my mother to get back from the local store a few blocks away, and that's when it hit me that this person was actually me. She, too, had moved away quickly after locking eyes with me when I was a kid, and she was dressed in the same attire I was wearing in 2018. It was almost as if what happened wasn't supposed to happen. I wasn't supposed to be there on that day. Even up till this day, I'm confused. How could I possibly have seen myself from the future, and for me to remember it? I've never told anyone about it because they would assume I'm a delusional idiot or something. This has been something I haven't been able to explain to anyone. I still sometimes think about it and wonder whether I just fell asleep with my eyes open and had hallucinated the entire event, but I recall it as blue as daylight. I've even asked my mother about the event, and she blankly stared at me, saying I acted odd that day, wanting to go back to that place for some unknown reason. I don't believe in the supernatural, but after having experienced this event, I think there is definitely something there which we aren't aware of. Quick one from the year 2000. My mom, brother, and I were driving home from Wildwood, New Jersey, which we do every year with local friends in the next town over. This was the era before GPS, so we had MapQuest instructions to get around. We left Wildwood and headed home at 8 a.m. and should have been home by 1 p.m. Somewhere in New Jersey or New York, we started to get hungry because it's a long trip and we didn't have any food packed. I was listening to my Sony CD player at the time, and I asked my mom to find a place to eat, please. We skipped breakfast that day to make good time on the road. We got off the highway to find some food, but we soon got lost around 10:30 a.m. Didn't see a car for miles. The roads looked weird, and we started seeing roadways closed for construction, but there was no construction actively being worked on. We saw more than one highway entrance that was just blocked with construction cones. We didn't see the highway either, so we couldn't get back on the Garden State Parkway. We couldn't find any way out of the place we got lost in, which was near a body of water. That's when we all collectively lost track of time. It's normally a 5-hour drive home. When we all came to, it was 3 p.m. We looked at each other and all said the same thing. Where did the time go? What time is it? How long have we been driving? Where are we? We finally found a weird old-timey diner and got food. The waiter gave us good directions home. We finally got home around 6 p.m. A 4-hour car ride turned into a 10-hour ride. When we got home, we called our local friends who we went on vacation with. They arrived home hours ahead of us. I recently asked my mom what she remembers about this story, and she remembers it exactly the way I posted above. She always refers to it as, "We must have been abducted by aliens." But she's not serious. She genuinely doesn't know what happened that day. Strangely, my brother doesn't recall the event as detailed as my mom and I. Upfront info. I'm a manager of a clerical team. I have an assistant manager, lead, that I interact with daily, and we are constantly taking care of the team together. The date of the experience, 6/6/2022. I got to work at 9 a.m. and was immediately pulled into a meeting that lasted 2 hours and was broken up with a coffee break. I left my peer manager's office and went to my office to grab my cup and a K-cup. To get to where I was heading, I had to pass by my lead's desk. When I got there, she was sitting at her desk working on something on her computer. I stopped by to give a quick hello and catch up on need-to-knows. I made some remark like, "Hey, how are you this morning?" She was very focused on her computer and didn't immediately respond. I've learned that when she is that focused, it's best if I just walk away, because if I insist on a conversation, she will have to restart her train of thought, and a verbal report was not so important that I felt like it deserved an interruption. Plus, I was still needed back at the meeting, so I walked away and got my coffee. After, I needed to have my lead work on something discussed at the meeting. She wasn't at her desk, so I asked the team if they knew where she went. They all reported that they all had not seen her today. Disbelieving, I laughed and thought they were all trying to prank me. However, they reiterated that she had called in sick. I kinda lost my cool, not out of anger, but because I was truly baffled by the situation. I texted my lead, but she wouldn't respond, so I was dang concerned about her well-being. I'm still at a loss as to how to explain this, but I talked to her today and she confirms that she was not at work. She is a little weirded out, but I'm really bothered. I legit had a one-sided conversation with her, and I know it was her. There is no way that it wasn't her. Desks are assigned, especially for leads. It bothered me so much that I got home and spent all night watching YouTube on being able to see or perceive alternate dimensions. It's literally the only conclusion that I can draw. I am not crazy. Since October 2020, I have lost 100 pounds and am at a point in my life where I've never been healthier. The thought it could be a brain tumor has crossed my mind. I would think, though, that my employees, the closest of which was 8 feet from me, I would think 40 employees would notice me talking to an empty desk. Anyone else have a similar experience in public? Her desk is hard to miss, meaning she sits in a spot that is highly visible to all employees and vice versa. How can I experience something so profound, but in public? I wonder if I should go get an MRI. Edit. I read a comment on another post that had mentioned quantum immortality. Did I die in the break room while getting coffee? I saw one of my coworkers go into the break room as we were punching out for the day. The break room, shop, and office are all in one small building. She wasn't in the office as I was punching out. I figured she might have been in the bathroom or something, but walking back out, I noticed the bathroom door was open. She wasn't in the office, as I had just stated, and she wasn't in the break room or the shop. She drives a V8 Mustang, and trust me, it's loud, so I definitely would have heard her leaving. So I go out to my car, and both her and her car are gone. So just to recap, she went into the break room. I went in immediately after her. She wasn't in the break room, office, shop, or bathroom. There'd be no possible way for her to leave without walking past me. There is only one door we walk through to leave. I did not hear her car leave. She was nowhere to be seen. Her car and her seemed to vanish without a trace, and I find it very strange. What do you think? So this happened last year. For a bit of backstory, I've been a scout since I was 7 years old. We meet up once a week at our base, which is an oldish building with windows made out of a thick plastic material instead of glass, and a pretty big patio. There is one particular window that I think must have been applied wrong because it constantly slams against the wall at the slightest breeze. It is the only window in the building that does this. Anyways, last year we had just started meeting up in person again after the pandemic, and there wasn't much of a protocol yet, so we were just getting together for a few hours and hanging out. In one of those days, one of the girls gets the bright idea to throw rocks at the wall to see if they break. Dumb, I know, but that's what you get when you put a bunch of bored 15-year-olds together with little supervision. On one of her throws, she accidentally aimed higher and hit the window that slams itself on the wall and breaks it. She immediately stopped throwing rocks after that. I remember being pretty bummed out by the window breaking because it had been there for so long. We joked about it being an end of an era of sorts, but other than that, we quickly moved on from it and went on with our day. The weird part happened the next week. We went to the base, and I noticed that the window was intact. At first, I thought they may have replaced it, which seemed unlikely, since they don't really fix anything in the base in such short notice and without mentioning it. I ruled it out completely when I heard it slam against the wall again. So I found it pretty much impossible that they would have not only replaced the window the week after it was broken, but also replace it wrong. I later asked the girl who broke the window and other people who saw it happen. They all confirmed that the window broke, and we were dumbfounded as to why it's intact again. This happened sometime in 2012 in my town during early May. All the tram tracks were removed in order for a new infrastructure to be built. It took about 1.5 years to modernize it all. So this one evening, I was coming home from a hypermarket together with my friend called Nick. While on our way to the neighborhood, we got a call from another friend of ours to pick him up, and we lose some time later. So after leaving the groceries home, me and Nick went to pick him up. The block of flats he lives in is across from the tram line, which at the moment was under construction. So the two of us got in front of this guy's block of flats and were waiting for him. As you look from the entrance of the block towards the tram line, there's a small store blocking the view, let's say 6 meters wide and 4 meters tall. Suddenly, we hear the noise of a tram, and we get surprised to actually see a tram going from left to right. As it passed behind the small store, the tram noise stopped and the tram never emerged on the other side. Shocked, we both went to see if the tram stopped or something. The biggest shock was that the tram was not there and nowhere to be seen. As an even bigger surprise, 200 meters away from this place, the new track was not even laid, so it couldn't have gone in that direction. We called my uncle, who was working at the tram company at that moment, asking if there were tram tests or something similar. He said that no tram went out of the depot in the past months. This left a lot of questions for me and my friend. Even weirder was the fact that some of the guys that live in the area say They saw weird lightning during the night, even if outside there was a clear sky. So I keep wondering, what kind of glitch is this? I know this maybe isn't the right sub, but for some reason I can't post in any of the dimension-shifting ones. But I just put something together and I want to get some feedback or be told whether or not I'm insane. I've always been really interested in the how, what, why of it all, and recently applied that interest to reading and watching documentaries about different quantum theories. When I stumbled across mentions of astral projection and quantum immortality, I remembered my mom describing experiences to me when I was young from her own childhood that sounded just like what I'd read astral projection was like. The next time we talked on the phone, I brought it up and asked her to describe it to me. She can't do it anymore and can't remember exactly when it stopped. I took notes, but that's another post. For shits and giggles, I decided to describe quantum immortality to her and asked her if she remembered any time in her life that she should have died but didn't. The example I gave her was the one of an impending head-on collision. You close your eyes and brace for impact. It's unavoidable, but nothing happens, and you open your eyes and the truck is behind you driving in the opposite direction, as though it had driven right through you. No one else on the road noticed a thing. This is where it gets strange. My mom is immediately reminded of almost that exact thing that apparently happened to her one winter night in 2009 to 2010. And apparently to me too, which is insane because I really don't quite remember it. What I do remember is that my parents had just split up. I was 19 or 20 and a sophomore in college. I was living with my mom in a townhouse and commuting to school because I had a horrible roommate experience on campus. We were really close at that time, going through a lot together. That night I remember that we went to see Alice in Wonderland in 3D. We got pretty stoned in the parking lot first, not after, don't worry, and loaded up on snacks. I remember it was freezing and snowy, and it was late. A late showing, so it was pitch black outside. This was in upstate New York. I remember my mom drove the Prius that she still has to this day. What I don't remember is what she described to me happened on the way home. Or if I do, it's very vague and might just be because I imagine what she told me. She said we were on a main road between towns headed home, crossing over the Erie Canal on a bridge that slightly curves and intersects almost immediately at the end with another main road on each side. She said there was a car coming from the opposite direction, and the road, especially the bridge, were extremely icy. The other car started to slide and I guess was coming at us. My mom said she couldn't get out of the way to the left or right because even if it weren't too slippery, we were on a bridge, so there wasn't really anywhere to go. She also couldn't slam on the brakes because then we'd just be sliding too and would just make it worse. She said she did the mom seatbelt with one arm and closed her eyes and braced for impact, and she actually doesn't remember much after that other than being home. Doesn't specifically remember being like, wait, what? I was floored when she told me this because I hadn't remembered it at all. I just thought, and then forgot for a few weeks. Yesterday we were talking on the phone again, my mom and I, and it dawned on me that we barely speak anymore. She said something wildly out of character that left me speechless. Not the first time she's done so in recent years. She also mentioned that I had changed and that we didn't agree on anything anymore and that I was hard to talk to. I realized that I also didn't recognize this woman in a lot of ways. The mom I remember as a kid, despite her flaws, was pretty liberal-minded and taught me about civil rights and the LGBTQ+ community and how they struggled and why, and how we deep down are really all the same. She pondered the stars, and while I was raised Catholic, thanks to grandparents on Dad's side, she always taught me to be open-minded to, but also wary of, all religions. She talked about reincarnation of a soul, and, though not on purpose, she used to astral project as a child. She was one of my best friends and a great comfort. I don't know if we've lived too far apart for too long, or she's just getting old, or she's so engrossed in their local news media — I don't watch television news at all — that it's driving her batty. But my mom is now super conservative, honestly kind of ignorant, and I hate to admit it, randomly racist person who snaps her 2 cents, usually negative, out before you've even finished your sentence. She says what she thinks and doesn't care who it insults. The odd part is, she's the happiest she's ever been. My stepdad is great. They have a nice house. They're both still working, but they have great jobs. They're financially secure. They have hobbies. Also, she randomly, out of nowhere, in her 50s, developed a nut allergy, which I know happens, but figured could be relevant. So, did either my mom, me, or both die 12 years ago and I just noticed? Excuse my French, but I am so fucking confused. This just happened to me maybe 5 minutes ago. I knew this probably would fit better here than the Mandela Effect subreddit. Honestly, it made more sense to me to post it here. I was home every day. I notice things very well because I like to look around and observe nature, etc. Every single day I walk home. I've been living on this same street for 10 years. Today I was walking and noticed a white house between 2 houses. One was brown that was on the right side of this new house, and one was yellow on the left. I honestly stared at the house for a few seconds, trying to remember if I've seen it before. There's a rundown house on our street, so I thought maybe they fixed it up. Nope, that house is 5 to 6 houses down from this one. I noticed they were painting it, so I tried to remember if there was a house there at all. Nope. I was really freaked out. I've never seen this driveway, the cars, the people, any of it. Never seen this house. I could have sworn that this house wasn't there before. It's so unlikely that I didn't notice this before because I walk home every day. I'm so confused. Nothing else is off on my street, but from the 4 hours I was gone, I highly doubt someone built a whole house in that time and had time to paint it. It's just impossible. I swear the yellow and brown house were right next to each other. I think I'm losing my mind. I'm not on any drugs or intoxicated. I've never done drugs or had alcohol in my life. Anyone had anything similar happen? Edit 1. It's on Google Maps. The more I look at it, the more I'm confused and realize I've never seen it. So I decided to ask my mother. She said it's been there all along, and I'm so confused, I swear it hasn't. I highly doubt I missed it since I walk home all the time from the same way. Edit 2. I noticed it was the same color they were painting it on Google Maps, so I doubt it was a different color before. I don't know how Google goes about taking pictures for Google Maps, but I doubt that's what happened. I think. Hello, little Vickies. Thanks for listening. If you like what you heard and you haven't subscribed already, please do subscribe and hit the like button, as they're both very helpful to my growth here on YouTube, and I'm trying to get to 500 subscribers, and I know we can do it. If you have a suggestion or simply want to say hello, please leave a comment. I love to hear what you have to say. If you have a story of your own you'd like to share and possibly have read on the channel, send it to me at veronica45stories@gmail.com. Link is also in the description, as are other ways to support the channel if you feel so inclined. I post 2 to 3 times a week as often as I can. My schedule has gotten very busy lately, so it's harder for me to post every week, Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday, but I'm doing my best. Thank you so much for being here. I appreciate it more than I can say. And until next time, be good.